Just do 15 minutes. Might I inquire of the chair? It's my understanding now that the Republicans will have 30 minutes. Is that correct?
The senator is correct.
All right. Mr. President, I'm going to go ahead and take the first 15 minutes. Then it's my understanding that the senator from Georgia, Senator Chambliss, wants 5 minutes, and Senator Craig 10 minutes after that. And I'd like to lock that in with the UC.
Without objection. Mr.
President, I'd like to draw the Senate's attention to an editorial in today's Wall Street Journal, and particularly the first sentence. It says, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and other liberal leaders in Capitol Hill are gripped by a cold sweat terror. If they permit a vote on offshore drilling, they know they'll lose. Now, the editorial page goes on to point what the Democrats' plan of action is for this problem is cut off debate. We've been in session this week. We've held one vote. We are considering a bill relating to energy, but the Democrats are not allowing us to offer any amendments to find new sources of energy, when the editorial points out that at least 65% of America's recoverable oil and 40% of America's natural gas is under moratorium. And I ask unanimous consent that the end of my remarks that the editorial appear in its entirety. Now, what they're talking about, let's put the chart up here if you would, is those areas where we have huge supplies that we can access, except we cannot do it because there are moratoria, such as exist right now in terms of the Rocky Mountain oil shales, 2 trillion barrels. The Outer Continental Shelf, 85% of the Outer Continental Shelf is under an order that the Democrats have on there so that we are not able to explore, produce, to drill in those areas. Now, you hear the argument quite often that that there's 68 million acres that could be explored right now, and they're not doing it. Well, they're not doing it for one reason, that is because there's no oil there. Now, throughout this week, I've heard a number of my Democrat colleagues come to the floor and express their support for increased drilling. Well, apparently this has all been some kind of a misunderstanding. I've taken their consistent votes against increasing domestic production as being against new drilling. And if we all agreed that one new domestic production is part of what we need to do, then let's get on with some votes and get them underway. On my website, it's epw.senate.gov. EPW stands for Environment and Public Works. What I've done, Mr. President, is go back and get all of the votes that we have had that would allow us to expand our supply in America in areas like this. And right down party lines, they have been killed by the Democratic Party. This is a problem. Somehow, the Democrats are trying to convince the American people that supply and demand is not alive and well in America. It was interesting the other day, there was a newspaper, it was either an op-ed piece or it might have been in the editorial page of the Washington Post, where it said, even Congress is not going to be able to repeal the law of supply and demand. The American people understand the need for new domestic production. Recent polling has shown 67% of the American people now support offshore drilling, with just 18% opposed. 64% believe that if offshore drilling is allowed, gas prices will go down. Well, that's a natural conclusion that you can come to. Another poll found that 81% of Americans support greater use of domestic energy sources. Both papers in my home state of Oklahoma have weighed in on this issue with recent editorials. The Tulsa World and the Oklahoman have weighed in, pointing to how new production can be done in an environmental manner. The Tulsa World wrote, President George W. Bush made the correct decision when he lifted the White House's 18-year ban on offshore drilling. No one wants the environment damaged. This work can be done safely. It could be done in the long term only if Congress had the good sense to act. The Oklahoman wrote, this is in Oklahoma City, the Democrats reacted to President Bush's lifting of an executive ban on offshore drilling by vowing to keep in place congressional prohibitions dating back to the 1980s. The debate over energy policy just keeps getting better and better. For years, the Democratic Party has blocked efforts to significantly increase production of America's sources of offshore oil and natural gas, citing potential dangers to beaches in California and Florida, and dismissing any new oil finds as too far in the future to help United States energy needs. Both arguments have less persuasive steam with the current oil prices. Certainly, if drilling offshore had gotten underway a decade ago or more, instead of being stymied, Americans know what would be online and be able to absorb the current price increase. This is the interesting thing about it. If just back, we know what's happened in Prudhoe Bay. We know what the reserves are in Anwar. We know that we have a pipeline. If we had a pipeline filled, and if the president at that time, Bill Clinton, had not vetoed the bill that would allow us to go into Anwar, we would not be dependent upon foreign oil, whether it's the Middle East or Venezuela, for any of our needs. The domestic production should happen. It can be done in an environmentally appropriate way. No country on earth has exploration technology as advanced and environmentally sound as ours. I would have to say also that we are the only country, I can't think of another country, and I would hope if someone has the name of a country that would be an exception. There's not another country in the world that doesn't exploit their own resources. And it's certainly just these resources alone are enough to make us totally independent of any foreign importation of oil, and the prices would come down. I've highlighted some of the amounts of domestic reserves previously, but I think it's important to continue to point to the amount of reserves in the United Nations. There they are right there, and we've actually enumerated for purposes of the record.